absolutely ridiculous. This man won the biggest competition he could win in kickboxing way back in 2004, the K1 World Max. 20 years later, he decides to make his professional boxing debut, and the man is Buakaw Banchamek. And thank you very much, Science Dave, for the Buakaw keychain you got me from Thailand. Anyway, here's fighting Koji, I think that's pronounced correctly, spelt Koji, in an interesting rules fight, a 3 3-minute round boxing fight where there is no decision, only method of victory is by knockout or TKO. I'm 13-2 professional MMA fighter and Cage Warriors lightweight champion George Hardwick. Let's break this down. Now you'll see Buakaw, he walks out. There's quite an interesting jab he does. He angles his body back and then throws kind of like a hammer fist jab down, kind of like a chop. I think there's a bare-knuckled boxer I've read about in a Jack Slack article called Mendoza who would use that. Artem Lobov also used it against Teruto Ishihara. But Buakaw very comfortable walking forward against the boxer, taking shots on the gloves. Even though Buakaw's come from kickboxing, he has obviously fought against some of the biggest hitters you can fight against at that weight. Guys like Nicky Holskin, guys like Albert Kraus, for decades, and is very comfortable with it. Here he's using his frame just to fatigue the guy a little bit and stop him from opening up with longer combinations. Koji is firing a lot of combinations, and Buakaw, typical of the general slow Muay Thai start, is just walking out and getting a feel for him. Buakaw's always had a really good chin, always had a really good ability to roll with shots and take shots on the shoulders. Not just relying on the hands for defense, but using the shoulders. There he's walking forward, and he gets his head in close. He will bring his head in close, and that's the first big combination Buakaw throws. Angles this right hand and leaves it into a left, kind of hook uppercut into the body. Really good, nice rotation there. Koji's doing a really good job of firing through the gaps in Buakaw's guard, not just going straight. Trying to use the uppercut to exploit the tendency of Buakaw to duck into the clinch and to come up through the middle of those gloves. It's very hard to get a shoulder in the way of that uppercut as well. There's Buakaw using a beautiful long guard. Let's watch this again. Boom, jab, second jab, boom. Using that frame. Everyone's always like trying to jab and snap back, especially from a more boxing background, but because of the clinch in Muay Thai, we generally see a lot of people will jab or jab and leave it out to keep range for their kick or to have a hand on them to step into the clinch. And this is something you'll see Buakaw do as well, which you would tell a beginner to stop doing. He'll often just walk forward with straight legs, moving the back foot in first. You generally say front foot moves forward first, back foot follows in. There's that combination, but the opposite way, body hook angles off and then hits that right hand over. But you generally say, don't bring the back foot in first, extend your stance and then shorten it. But Buakaw will have had this habit for years because it makes it easier to teep. If your back foot's coming in, you'll have more weight in your back foot. You'll be able to bring your leg up to teep. You'll be able to bring your leg up to check much quicker. There's a 1-2 and he's framing out. And Koji's firing back and moving off. In terms of the energy efficiency, it's a much more energy efficient style Buakaw's using. Just kind of hanging into the clinch after combinations and leaning on his man, rather than trying to use loads of footwork to cover distance after. Look at that body hook there. He hits the body hook, and to stop the return, he just puts it as a frame on the neck. Let's put it back. See if I can get a nice little freeze frame of that. Boom. He gets this little frame on the neck. Sometimes it's easier just to frame off with that body hook to stop them firing back than it is to race your left hand back to the chin. Your left hand is in a race against their right hand if you're always trying to pull it back to the chin. Whereas if you just stick that forearm into the neck, it can be a little bit of a disruption to their balance and throw them off from the combination. So let's get back into the flow of the match. There's that frame, pushes off and right straight, and beautiful bit of head movement there. Buakaw's stance was a little bit more extended, which allowed him to transfer weight onto the back leg to slip that punch. He does take shots, and Buakaw's always had a ridiculous chin. I think throughout his full combat sports career, where he's had about 300 or 400 fights, he's only been knocked out clean once by Yoshihiro Sato. Maybe there was a knockout in some of his early stadium Muay Thai fights. Who knows? You'll have to double check that for me. But maybe it's attributable to the chewing the rope and doing neck ups, biting onto a rope, doing neck ups with a plate hanging off of it. But the guy who sold that Jaws size thing years ago, who said it would prevent you from getting knocked out, had one fight, if you look in the Sherdog, and he got knocked out. Here's some slow-mos. Buakaw leaning in. Buakaw's happy to lean in to avoid being at the end of the punches of Koji. happy to lean in and take a lot of sting off, and Buakaw just seems a lot more comfortable firing punches from a closer range, probably because of all the time he's spent clinching. Then he just walks after him in a nice relaxed saunter. You see this in MMA sometimes by like a Strickland. You wouldn't tell someone to have their legs straight in the stance all the time. Wouldn't tell someone to just walk in with the feet quite narrow, but it is very energy efficient. Using that long guard, pushing away. Long guard of Buakaw really good, and then he can stick the jab in. As well, just having different types of guard makes it much more difficult for opponents to fire around. Remember when Buakaw fought Masato the second time, he relied solely on the long guard and low kicks, and Masato was able to answer that guard a lot more. There he gets cracked over the top with that right hand as he's just stepping in the long guard, but manages to take the vulnerable targets away. I'm not sure how transferable this defense would be to 4-ounce gloves. That's your interest. And there, that right straight into body hook, nice and tight, and there hits that uppercut. Feints a left hook, and just walks back in. Mixing up the tempo and the rhythm and the power on certain shots, like certain hooks are more to guide him into the next shot, rather than each shot in the combination being a very powerful shot. 1-2 left hook, Koji returns with a left hook, and they're just exchanging jabs here. Boom, beautiful 3 shots. Left hook, right hook, left uppercut. Boom, boom, boom. Different angles, very hard to defend. The hooks get him ducking, and the uppercut comes through the middle. Check hook by Buakaw. If anyone's a big Buakaw fan, you'd know his 10-second knockout over Shishido. And there he's doing the double body hook. A big thing with the double body hook a lot of the time is that generally it starts with the right hand and then closes up with the left. If you do it the other way, so the reason you tend to do it this way is because on the right hook, you open yourself up. The shoulders square up a little bit here, which makes you open down the middle. But then on the left hook, you close your stance back up. So generally, you see people lead with the right hook. If they're doing that double hook to the body, which relies a lot of time and speed, they'll lead with that backhand hook and then follow up with the lead hook to close the stance back in. Buakaw just walking towards him. Seemed to have really fatigued Koji at this point by letting him punch across the gloves. Another energy efficiency type strategy of Buakaw is that he doesn't fire every shot incredibly powerfully, so he'll keep his gas tank a bit fresh, despite being 42. Multiple hooks. Koji trying to back off, circling towards the power hand of Buakaw. Buakaw extending his stance as he gets a bit closer in. He'll just walk, feet quite close together, further out, and then extend his stance as he gets in. I wonder how much of this is a Thai habit, because as he's further out, he'll be at kicking range. So he'll have that built into him, wanting to check. Pushing away. As Koji gets back to the fence, his stance squares up, and there frames. Beautiful stuff. Every strike, everyone who's wanting to strike should learn how to use their frames. Say that right hand is leveraging up for the left hook to the body as well. It's turning the stance of Koji. Koji's shoulders are turning, so the body is squaring up for this body hook to fit through the middle. See if I can be quick enough with the boom, body hook lands. And then he's not going to take it all the way back to the face. He's going to use his hand as a frame, nice and easy. Instead of racing his left hand against Koji's right, he's just going to stick it on the clavicle, across the face, cover a bit of the vision, which is going to line him up for a big right hand. Bang. Classic stuff. Buakaw's done that his whole career, particularly in 2006, when he won most of the fights in the tournament, the K1 Max tournament, with his hands. There's that same thing. Right hook, even if it hits a glove, it turns the body and the pit of the stomach into the left hook. Boom. Left hook by Koji. Really good distance management by Buakaw, being able to just touch gloves at all times. There's that same combination, left hook, right hook, and then left uppercut, getting him to duck and then coming up through the middle. Boom, same thing. That combination again. Right hand turns the body of Koji into the left hook body. He tries to fire back, and Buakaw using the frame. Obviously, Koji does land a fair amount in this round. There, Buakaw used the right shoulder beautifully to defend. Let's see if we can get a good frame on that. Boom, he throws right straight here, so shoulders forward. I think I went too... Didn't go far back enough. Boom, there. He's going to throw this one too, but instead of bringing this shoulder back straight away, kind of re-squaring himself to the opening that Koji would want to exploit with his left hand, most likely. He's going to leave that right shoulder out and do pretty much a reverse shoulder roll to defend against that left hook, rather than racing back into a stance where he could get caught on the recovery of his stance. Counter fighters, they'll want to exploit that gap between the end of your strike and your recovery into your stance. So he just uses that right shoulder, keeps it forward to block the left hook. He does take the right straight as he's squaring up, but then again frames into his own cross, body hooks whilst he's got his man on the fence. A little bit of what did Mauro Ranallo always call it? Histrionics. But you can see as Koji's against the fence, his body is more square, so Buakaw has an easier time landing his shots to the body. It's a bigger target. It's harder to cover that with the elbows, and it's harder for Koji to fire back with anything other than the hooks, really. Left hook, right hand, and then left uppercut. Very leaned off to the side was Buakaw, stepping back as Koji tries to return. You either go head to head, hook head with the left, right, and then the uppercut through the middle. Again, guiding him into it. There's a nice little roll. He actually takes a bit of the sting off that, does Koji, by the looks of it. Bit of the histrionics. And then gets 2 into the display and doesn't really react to the 1-2. Again, harder for him to defend because his stance was so squared up against the fence that he couldn't really get his lead shoulder in the way. Let's see if we can get a frame. So yeah, as his back's against the fence, the shoulders square up. So it's going to be a bigger job. He's going to try and get his lead shoulder in the way, but it's going to be a much bigger job and it'll take a lot more time for him to get the shoulder in the way whilst the shoulders are square. It's going to take more time, and in that time, Buakaw lands his right hand. Ding. Buakaw, despite being a 42-year-old man, seemingly has a cardio advantage. Sip of tea, double bagged. One was a mint green tea, and one was just a green tea. Green light still on, still recording. Let's get into round 3 of this bizarro rules pro boxing fight with the Muay Thai legend and Koji. Obviously, I'm a bit biased towards Buakaw. I know a lot more about Buakaw, which is why I'm talking about his tactics a little bit more. Let's move this forward. We don't need to see him wiping the canvas. So a lot of the stuff you can take from this fight is that different type of jab. Sometimes he just sticks it out. Sometimes he'll throw the jab out and bring it back. Sometimes he'll throw the jab and leave it there and use it as a guard to keep that shoulder up, to defend against the right hand, to kind of interrupt the longer combinations, and then leverage into those right straights, keeping that elbow low. Boom. Obviously Dubois used that really well against Anthony Joshua. He throws double jab, and then instead of trying to race back to the chin, left hand versus right hand, you'll just leave it out to disrupt the base of Joshua and keep that shoulder covering the chin, so he's not as open to that right hand. Koji lands one there. Again, these double hooks into uppercuts, and there's the cross counter. Because Buakaw's feet are so close, he keeps his feet quite close as he walks in. You can always take a good step and penetrate on the jab, framing out. There's that right hook into left hook body. The right hook, even if it hits a glove, it succeeds in the job of loading Koji's weight onto his right leg and turning his body into the left hook. Multiple frames. There's that right straight. A lot of the time, if you get on that angle for the right straight, why not throw 2 of them? If anyone saw Akihiro Kaneko get his revenge on Masahiko Suzuki, he threw like 4 of them. 4 of them. He got the angle and just threw 4 with a little hand trap, and that caused a lot of damage to Suzuki. There, he barely even threw the right hook to set up that body hook. He knew the glove was going to be there, so he almost scooped the glove. Boom. Let's go back. Let's see if I can freeze frame this correctly. Someone needs to tell me about a better editing app than just using the screen recorder. But he's going to just use this. Use this to scoop. He's almost like opening his hands out just to pretty much grab the glove. And that's going to turn Koji in this direction. His body will be square relative to the left hook of Buakaw, and his elbow will be able to cover less of the body. So it's going to land in nice and clean. Bang. And then there's a right uppercut to the body. Left hand doing all this frame. Boom. Framing is really good, because even if he does take a shot whilst he's framing, there he frames with the backhand and leads with the left hook to the body. A little bit of the Nick Diaz versus Frank Shamrock on it. But even if he does take a shot whilst he's palming off and framing off of Koji, it's going to take a lot of the sting off because Koji's going to be out of balance and out of sorts. Hand on hand, two hands. Really nice head movement by Buakaw. Buakaw, he started to develop this really good head movement in his career and starting to use a little bit of a Philly shell there, which you didn't really see in his K1 fights. But he'd use that head movement really good to get in really close and then land his knees. Obviously, not allowed here. Both trade right hands. Pulling back. He has been caught in his career by that. Andre Dida. Yeah. He exploited that by just extending a little bit more on his shots and knocked Buakaw down a couple times. Lovely step back uppercut. I just want to see this again. Boom. Loads his weight on his back foot so he can turn it in nice and quick. And then he's using the Philly shell, Stonewall. I don't know what the correct phrase for that defense is. Koji was trying that same double right hand from that slightly outside angle, but nowhere near the sting of Buakaw because there's no real frame between it. He's just punting his arm into the side of the head and shoulder of Buakaw, but it doesn't do near as much damage. 1-2 by Buakaw. Koji sticking his tongue out. I always hear people say, when you start sparring, you might stick your tongue out once, being silly because you just started. Oh no, don't do that. You're going to end up biting your tongue off. But I've never seen it happen. Buakaw kind of squaring up his stance to throw a bit more ambidextrously against Koji as Koji's backed up on the wall. And it's a little bit of a sprint to the finish with that same tool we've seen the whole fight, that right hook to angle Koji into the left hook body. Insane fight. Buakaw's like 42 years old, a legend forever. Koji's really cool too. If you like the breakdowns or have any suggestions, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe, whatever the correct term is on YouTube. Use code HARD10 at RevGear. Got the Patreon as well. I don't pay all any content, but I'd probably go more towards Patreon boys' suggestions for the next stuff. Right, see you soon.